As a lifelong fan of all things fake and completely pointless, I firmly believe that there is one thing that ties all gamers together. I like to call it death by nostalgia. Going back to play a childhood favorite title only to realize we must have all had our eyes closed. A good example of this for me is the original Final Fantasy, an absolutely phenomenal game that feels as if it's mere seconds from pissing its pants. This is the kind of game that would explode if my sneeze was the wrong color. Final Fantasy, it's a great game, but it is programmed very badly. I am not here today to talk about games that have aged poorly or titles I used to enjoy with my sub-double-digit prepubescent hacky sack of a brain. No, I am here to uncover a disease that is steadily encroaching upon our industry, a problem that only seems to get worse with each passing year. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are pretty good games with a unique twist in the classic Pokemon formula that really pushes the series past its previously modest boundaries. The game is also the equivalent of shoving a baguette in a toaster that's already on fire. Good games made poorly. Worthwhile experiences held back by lackluster performance and undercooked programming. No, not the Sonic 06s and Cyberpunks, games that are obviously not complete, evident both by their content and performance. I'm talking games that are worth your time, but require hurdles to jump over. That hurdle many times being the frame rate. Frame rate junkies have always seriously confused me because, personally speaking, I can only think of a handful of situations where it's been a help or a hindrance. Geometry Dash is actually where this channel all started. No, they don't exist anymore. In order to be a top flight player, you need a 144Hz monitor. You simply won't make it with standard 60 frames. Final Fantasy VII Remake has a very reactionary combat system which feels dramatically better in 60 FPS. In first-person shooters, it obviously makes a difference because of the fast camera and split-second maneuvers. Frame rate is important, but was Kirby Star Allies really the hill to die on? I remember when this game came out and the fandom had a stroke over the locked 30 FPS. This is the easiest game I have ever played. There are situations where the frame rate can become rather frustrating though. Action games pretty much require a steady frame rate, whatever that number happens to be. It's extremely annoying in games like Star Ocean: The Divine Force when the frame rate shits the bed mid-fight. On PS5 it rarely happens, but the game isn't exactly pushing technical boundaries here, so I feel that there's a level of poor resource management going on. Luckily, the game is still extremely fun. Buy it. This is something you see a lot in smaller productions and tight-budgeted experiences. Whether it be a lack of time or resources, many games disregard things like frame rate hiccups in favor for, finishing the game. Looking past a level of inconsistency is simply something you come to accept from primarily playing smaller, less PlayStation exclusive-y titles. Aw, you got some frustrations because the game couldn't display 60 fully rendered images to your eyes every second? Cast them away, you penis monkey. The game's budget was, well, still more than what's in my savings account. And personally speaking, I've never truly been bothered that much by low frame rate games or frame rate dips. What bothers me significantly more, though, is a slowdown. When a game is too much for itself to handle and actually has to slow down to process it all. This is one of the most immersion-breaking things a game can do to me, because so much of the interactivity comes from the theoretical flow state gained from finding a rhythm within a gameplay loop or set of mechanics. Xenoblade Chronicles 3D suffered from extreme slowdown issues when fighting larger groups of enemies with a 3D on. Suddenly my skills are recharging slower, the enemy movements aren't following the expected pace, the game, straight up, can't handle itself. Pokemon Sword and Shield had this very bad as well when it came to the online wild areas. Whether it was the janky engine or poor connectivity, I don't really know. But the game would stutter and slow down constantly, which is something that absolutely shouldn't have been happening. This game wasn't exactly a console overheater if you're jiggling my giblets. Despite all of this though, I'd argue that through those technical problems, these games are still absolutely good experiences. But some people simply can't look past the performance of a game. They value that very highly, and even the smallest of hiccups can seriously dampen the experience for them. Some people swore off the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters because of the font, but who am I to stand here and say that those opinions are invalid? Everyone's experiences with the game are indeed different, and maybe these performance inconsistencies prove to be a huge issue. My big question is, where should a line be drawn? Well, this is far from profound, I'm well aware, but if it's actively getting in the way of playing the game at all, then there might be room for real criticism. Sonic Unleashed on the original Xbox 360 and PS3 barely functions with how low the frame rate can get. More so than any other Sonic game, Unleashed is heavily reaction-based, testing your consistency to dodge the oncoming obstacles while maintaining a blistering blistering speed. But there are a lot of occasions where the game runs so badly that doing so becomes a matter of luck. There's no way this game can be played properly under these conditions, which really sucks because otherwise this game has extremely fun gameplay. Bump up those numbers with the Series X and there are no problems to be found. In cases like that, the fundamental gameplay is sound. The only thing keeping it back is the poor performance. In a game like Sonic 06, while the stages are well designed and is primarily being held back by its slowdown, bugs, and similar performance issues, there were still serious corners cut within the movesets, the speed, the hub world design, the story. A simple patch wouldn't have been able to solve that game's problems. But unfortunately, if somebody was to cast off Unleashed due to the frame rate, I couldn't really blame them. It seriously hinders an otherwise great experience. This is something you see with almost every Bethesda RPG ever made. Skyrim has been out for over 10 years now, and it is still a buggy mess. It's a great RPG with tons to love, but if somebody was to make the claim that getting stuck in walls or constantly crashing ruined the experience for them, well, that's valid. Take any Elder Scrolls or Fallout game, and I guarantee you at least once had to homebrew a solution to a quest because it just wouldn't work. But the games at large are fun and engaging when the polish isn't thin enough that the sun's rays break through and burn you alive. I bet they'd be a lot better if they had been developed to a more competent degree to a universally acceptable standard. Pokemon really is one of the biggest offenders in this category. Legends Arceus was a really fun experience in regards to its core mechanics, but I've never seen a game that was so blatantly stapled together. The compression on character models was extremely severe, pop-in was rampant, and the level of detail changes made scenic views just look laughable. The culling was done in such a manner that the shadows of objects would disappear once that object would leave your field of vision, even if it was still very, very close to you. This is a fun game, but the performance does not allow for a serious level of immersion. It is too consistently poor. This is all carried over into Scarlet and Violet, but made significantly worse by more bugs and obviously unintentional graphical oddities that I fear are never gonna get patched. I like the game, but the buggy nature of its presentation really rides that line of being unacceptable. I think what bothers me most as a person that can indeed look past a lot of technical jank is that sometimes a great game's identity can be defined by its poor performance, and I have to sit idly by and let it happen because sometimes people's complaints can't simply be disregarded. Those opinions may be, and God forbid Twitter hear about this, valid. And if a development team doesn't have the resources or simply the intent to refine said experiences, a truly remarkable piece of work can be forever left as a diamond in the rough. But I personally don't base my opinions off of what these sad internet voices tell me, so I'll be right here, enjoying my 20 frames of Ocarina of Time. Wake me when it matters.